Welcome to Fireside Nets, the number one podcast for Brooklyn Nets news, information, reactions, and so much more. I'm Spen. Pete is off this week with a non-COVID illness, wishing him a speedy recovery. But I'm not alone, as I am joined by I thought was a recurring guest. It turns out I'm just an idiot. Not a recurring guest, first time on the show. Saint at SaintNet1 on Twitter, or a co-host of Nets Kingdom on YouTube. What's going on, man? Welcome, not back to the show, but welcome to the show for the first time.
Well, kind of. I was on Peter's show, so yeah, kind of. All right, I was halfway there, but no, I'm good, man. As you can see, I'm in my witness protection outfit, trying to not let anybody know I'm a Nets fan right now. It is embarrassing, but I'm good, man, and I'm glad to be here. Reoccurring, non-reoccurring, future reoccurring. Let's do this.
Future reoccurring. Now, Saint, you're in Witsack because of the Brooklyn Nets. Before we get started, we have an unofficial sponsor of the show. Fireside Nets is brought to you by FireJacquesVaughn.com. Go there for all your latest head coach of the Brooklyn Nets news, information, reactions, and so much more. FireJacquesVaughn.com, unofficial sponsor of the show. Okay, now we can get into basketball.
I'll match all donations. You drop 100, I'll drop 100. I'll match all donations.
I want to get started with this basketball game from last night, Saint. Just when you think that it can't get more painful in terms of losing, the Nets find a way. I thought Charlotte earlier this year was as bad as it was going to get. I was kind of wrong. They lose in overtime, 96-95 to the Heat. So much to just cover on this one. Where do you want to start?
To be honest with you, I don't even care about game breakdowns right these days. Like honestly, I'll give you a breakdown, but it will be the same breakdown of every game that these heartbreakers where you have these stretches where maybe it's the first half where we're playing outstanding, the ball is flowing, defense, like you think, oh, okay, they're either getting it together on their own or they finally have grasped JV's plan that he always says they haven't quite yet grasped. And it's like, and then you get excited, but then the halftime comes and then dismal third quarter. And then I feel like I don't even care about who's in the fourth anymore because it feels like it's JV's fourth quarter. The man finds you amazing ways to potentially lose a game. Yeah, were there other outs there last night in that non-challenge, non-timeout debacle? Yeah, but by and large, that is like that's how they go. Like, I don't even need to get into like player breakdown. It's just like it's the same thing over and over. Like, I'm so tired of doing spaces.
Yeah, normally we'll cover the last 3 or 4 games on the Nets schedule. This is the only game we're covering. Okay. I don't want to talk about.
I'm not the best at game breakdown, so you please save.
Well, here's what I want to talk about, right? Because I'm not a stats guy, as the listeners know. I'm an eyes test guy, right? The eye test yesterday. What did the eye test tell me, Saint? It told me that Spencer Dinwiddie wants to get as far away from Brooklyn as possible. Now, we've pretty much known this, but if you watched him last night, it was almost more evident than ever. Just overall reaction to him just kind of calling it quits before he's actually dealt with the Brooklyn Nets.
Yeah, and I mean, let's be honest. You had Jay from BK on here. He's tweeted about it. He's talked about it. I mean, he was saying this stuff 2 months ago. He was telling us how unhappy, how there was a conversation with contracts, stuff that wasn't immediately dropped out. Where we knew this, we're not going to go run and blabber it out. But now that it's out, it can be talked about. But he did drop something like that 2 months ago. So, and there was a time, probably a couple weeks ago, and I saw Dinwiddie on the bench, and dude just was gone. And I knew it was it right there. It didn't matter how many Harden games he has from here on out. The dude's checked out, and he feels like you saw his Instagram. You can read into that all you want today, but it falls in line with what you were told originally, like what Jay had mentioned. So all the stars are lining up, and dude is checked out, dude is miserable, and he wants to go. And this is the one guy that, like, I don't think a lot of teams are going to be clamoring for in comparison to Royce and DFS. So you got a time bomb here. It's either going to get uglier and he's going to start saying stuff. But last night, yeah, like, it's done, man. He should not be starting.
Dinwiddie, the post that Saint is referring to on Instagram, Dinwiddie posted a picture of him in a Nets uniform, looking up that they're about to announce the starting lineup. And he wrote, "If you entertain a lie long enough, it will start to sound like the truth," in quotes. So let's, what is he, is he saying we're lying and he's entertaining that? Or,
well,
that's what I'm trying to understand.
The easiest thing I can say right off the bat, what's the picture of? Him and the Brooklyn Nets looking up. My first initial thought when I read that was, this guy was probably given a story a long time ago about being part of the Brooklyn Nets for life. It's his second stint. I'm sure there were some kinds of conversations about welcome back, we're going to get you in, and then you fast forward to contract negotiations. So I'm looking at this and I'm thinking this guy was sold a story about, you are a Brooklyn Net till the end, and we're going to reward your loyalty. You know what I'm saying? You saw how they traded him the first time and the words they were using about how we're going to take care of you. We take care of our players. It's not always about us. Yeah.
You know how when you click on an Instagram post, you can see who's tagged?
Uh-oh.
Shawn Marks isn't tagged here.
Is it or is?
No, he isn't.
Oh,
but
yeah.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying, right? Like if your narrative was accurate, if I click on this picture, Shawn Marks' page should just pop up, his probably private page that might or might not exist. That was that was the first thing I noticed in the game yesterday for a guy who's had some really, really good highs with the Brooklyn Nets. Yeah, these are some bad lows.
Yeah. You might have caught a speaker saying something that wasn't me, but go on. And I apologize if I interrupted you.
No, you're good. And I want to start with the bad stuff because I feel like there were a few decent things to take away from this game, and I don't want to overlook, Mikhail's defensive performance or Claxton showing up in that first half and like to make that more consistent. Cam Thomas getting some buckets. We'll talk about the good stuff, but the second thing, Cam Johnson. I want to get into this because for a few games, and these were like the games we were losing, we were just not in. Cam Johnson was our most consistent player for a minute. He was hitting his shots, but we were losing by like 20, 30. So who really cares when you're the best player on a shit team? We were in that game yesterday, and Cam Johnson, in so many ways, shot us out of that game. He could not buy a bucket. Jacques Vaughn goes back to him in the third quarter when the Heat made their run. He goes back to him in the fourth quarter for like 2 minutes before probably checking Twitter and putting Cam Thomas back in because he just came in. I think he was 1 of 3. He took 3 shots. The 2 he missed were ugly 3-pointers. The Heat made a run. Vaughn was like, okay, everyone on Nets Twitter is telling me to put in Cam Thomas. I might as well listen to them. Just overall thoughts on Cam Johnson and how he's looked these last few games.
I'm trying to figure out what's going on with not just Cam Johnson, but it's like a lot of players at certain points in the season. And I don't know if it's more player. It is a real tough thing sometimes to decipher between, is it player or is it the coaching and coaching scheme that keeps these guys from really getting in the zone? You talk about the eye test. We've seen multiple times how none of these guys, when you look at where they were in their previous teams, how they were utilized and how effective they were, which has made them attractive to begin with, you throw that out the window. And in some ways you are doing that with CJ, right? Like, and again, here we are in a position, we did it with Joe Harris, we did it with Seth Curry, we did it with Patty Mills, and I could go down the lines of players that were put in positions and asked to do more than they are capable of doing. And he just might be one of those players. It's tough, man. It is tough to watch. I think CJ is struggling a little bit. I think he's in his head. Obviously, dude was hurt. There's got to be some work back from that. But quite honestly, this organization, and I'll say this last thing, this organization and whatever coaching game plan that they have is basically making it almost impossible sometimes for these players to get on a roll outside of them just ignoring whatever he's yelling from the sideline while chewing gum and stroking his beard and just taking it on their own choice. So it's tough to watch, man, because I like CJ. And I know he can do better. I know he can play better. I know Mikal can play better. I know a lot of these players can play better than what they are.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. Minus 13 from Dinwiddie, minus 12 from Cam Johnson. Those were two of the worst plus minuses from any starter in that game. Everybody else, it was within like minus 4, minus 1. So those two guys really hurt us. And my only issue with CJ Saint is we gave him a nice fat contract for a guy who's essentially an elite 3-and-D player. And, you talked about his system last year in Phoenix. Like, yes, the first guy off the bench or a few years ago, I guess, is the first guy off the bench. When you had CP3, you had Booker, you're getting the second unit. Life was probably a little bit more easy for him. But as the number 2, number 3, he's supposed to be that number 2 scorer in that starting 5. It's been inconsistent, and it's been way too high, way too low. I saw Billy Reinhardt, I think, tweet that, his numbers aren't terrible, Cam Johnson. It's just the highs are way too high, way too low. It's just too volatile. Yeah, I don't know. For some reason, the fact that, we paid him and we're bought into him as our future, every miss just stung that much more yesterday. Maybe that was just me.
Well, see, and that's the thing. Like, if you look at their averages, people were even upset when these guys were hitting their averages. And I think a large part of, like, yeah, CJ is not playing to our expectations and probably to his own expectations and probably to the team's expectations. With that being said, it just, there's a lot of times these guys have gotten to what their averages are in games and people still crap on them like they had a crappy game. And it's like, but it's the other thing. It's like, we need to take a large step down of where we are placing these guys in comparison to other stars on other teams. And it's like, we're watching that right now where we're really getting a large look at like what these guys are capable of when it's on them. And we have a lot of guys that are good at a lot of things, but not the one thing we desperately need right now. And that's consistency.
Yeah, consistency. And, this was a game where we looked great in the first half. We looked terrible in that third quarter. Fourth quarter, we're able to hang around, get into overtime. Some clutch free throws by Mikal Bridges and Cam Thomas down the stretch. We get to overtime, and we got to talk about these final 2 moves by Vaughn. So Heat down 1, Butler to the rack. Looks like a clean strip by Andis Smith Jr. At first glance, heat of the moment. If I'm a ref, I'm not calling that. They blow the whistle. Immediately, Smith goes, review that. Does the sign, looks at Vaughn, review that. Vaughn turns around, looks at his tablet, chooses not to review it. Butler hits both. Heat go up 1 with 11-point-something seconds left. No timeout from Vaughn. Nets bring up the ball. Mikal gets a tough running jumper over essentially 3 Heat, misses it. The Nets lose the game. What did you think about Vaughn's decision not to challenge that call? And then we'll get to him not using the timeout shortly after that.
Okay, so my initial thought when I saw that first play by Dennis on Butler, at first glance, I was like, yo, what? Then when they zoomed in, before he got all ball, he did get all hand. I just, that's what I saw, right? And then I just let it go. And I'm like, like whatever. And, I was kind of like, nah, I don't think they're going to challenge this because I don't know. I just didn't feel good about the challenge. But then when we got the ball and Mikal's out and he's about to bring it in, I was like, automatically in my head, I'm like, yo, he's going to call a timeout. Cool. We got 10 seconds left. That's plenty of time to come up with something. Plenty of time. Why waste how many? What if they had decided to do a full court press? I'm not saying that would have been the smart move. I'm just saying, what if they did that, right? Like, then you're fighting to get the ball across and you hope maybe somebody's lucky down there. It just like everybody looked confused. Nobody looked like they knew what was about to happen. You have a player yelling why didn't you call the timeout or something like that? That's what I would have loved to happen. Now, also, you do call the challenge. Whether you lose it or not, you're getting a timeout. You get to center your guys. You get to talk to your guys. You maybe throw a little thing out there. Hey, maybe you say, you know what you guys were about to just run? Let's do that. But now we're starting here. We're starting. You know what I'm saying? Like nothing. Just you didn't even give your team a chance to. Dude, you're one game. It's a 1-point game with 10 seconds. And you're like, fuck it. Let's go. I don't know. I mean, I just.
Here's the thing that I saw. Dennis Smith Jr. is one of the leaders on this team, right? He's really proven himself these last few weeks for the Brooklyn Nets. He's pretty much taken Dinwiddie's job at the end of games.
Yes.
He is saying he's also defensively, he's one of the best players on your team. Even if he fouled him, saying, if that's your guy, you challenge it. You don't turn around and look. Yeah. Wow, Dennis Smith Jr., you're one of the leaders on this team. You want me to challenge it? Done. All right, by the way, if you're wrong, which you very well might be, let's go over this play, what I think we should do. There isn't another thing to do if you're going to call that timeout after he makes, both free throws, or you want to see what happens, take it before the free throws, because I guarantee Miami, they're going to go over a defensive game plan, but they're thinking about Jimmy Butler making those shots. That is a variable in the game. So draw something up. Your star player, Mikal Bridges, looked like he didn't know what to do that last possession. How does that happen? This isn't JV basketball. This is the NBA.
I just don't like his responses either, man. It was just like every time somebody asked him a question about it, it was like, yeah, I couldn't have drawn up a better play. I don't think I could. It's like just hearing that, like, I don't think I could have drawn up a better play than what I saw when we failed. That's what I heard. He didn't say the failed part, but it's like, that's what I heard was, oh, you saw you couldn't have drawn up a better play than what failed. You haven't watched Mikal Bridges bring the ball up. How many games are we at now, Spen?
Yeah, it was.
How many times have we watched him bring up the ball, initiate a drive, and give up the ball beyond cleanly? Like, just the dude has KD handles this season. Like KD had a couple seasons ago where he kept giving up the ball. It's like, but yeah, no, you couldn't have done any better than that. You're right. I'm sorry. No,
you're good. Not to mention the guy out of timeouts, they usually draw up pretty good plays for him, right? Yeah, no, by the way,
Kevin Ollie couldn't have handed you something and said, run this shit.
Right.
Sorry.
You're good. You talked about, Vaughn not being able to draw something up better than that. I drew a bunch of scribbles on a piece of paper, and you know what, Saint? I couldn't draw up anything better than this. I apologize.
I see where you put Cam Thomas for the game winner. I see that.
You see that?
I did.
All right. So the Nets are what? They're 16-23 now. Is that the record that we're going with? 16-23. Yeah. With a trade deadline that's less than a month away. We've seen a few names out there. I want to hear your thoughts on some of these names, how they might look in a Brooklyn jersey. Let's start with Hawks guard Dejounte Murray.
I like Dejounte Murray. However, is he better than Spencer Dinwiddie? Yes. Is he better than a couple of guys, a handful of players? Yeah. My only concern with Dejounte is I feel like you're putting another similar player to a bunch of players we already have. And I don't know. He is a great player, but he's not, like, let's be honest. What is he average? See, that's the one thing. I tried to watch him in the game the other day when the Hawks played, and dude was, every time I go to watch, he wasn't playing. But I don't have a problem with it as long as you're moving these other contracts, as long as you're getting rid of the Dinwiddies, the Royces, potentially DFS. Even though I don't want him to go, I understand his value. I understand his age. I get it. He may not fit long-term for us just because of where we're at. I get it. If you move a bunch of these contracts and get back, some picks and lower assets, somebody like him does make sense to throw in there. I could live with that because I'm not convinced Ben Simmons is coming back anytime soon consistently, right? He'll come back, but I think it's only a matter of time before he goes back down. So I'm not opposed to it. The money, I don't think his contract's that terrible, quite honestly.
No.
So I'm open. Like if you would I love Dame Superstar? Yes. But I'd much rather have somebody like Murray's contract if we're going to be staying where we're at, because you could still move it down the line.
So on the Hawks this season, Murray is playing the second most minutes on the team. He's averaging 20.8 points per game, 4.8 rebounds, and 4.8 assists per game. And the assist number is obviously not higher because Trae Young's the point guard. Murray is playing out of position on this Hawks team. 2.1 turnovers per game. Okay. Here's what I think of Dejounte Murray. A few years ago, I think it was right after maybe the Nets lost to the Bucks in that series. I called into Gio and was it Boomer and Gio, I think it was. Boomer and Gio at the time. And I said the Nets need some dogs on this team, guys. They need a PJ Tucker. They need some dogs. If I take away one thing from Dejounte Murray's young career, he's one of those dogs, man. He's hungry. Like, you never have to question effort with him. You know, he gets angry. He gets pissed off. I love that clip from a few years back, Saint, of Harden trying to walk into him, and he just shoves him out of the way. That was great. I love guys like that. That will challenge the Hardens, the Kyries, the Kevin Durant's, just three guys that came to my head. I love players that will challenge, you know, and fight like that. So
yeah, and they have an adequate level of skill to back up.
Exactly. And he's probably better than any guard we have, you know, with the exception of maybe Cam Thomas. So I like the move too for the right price. That would be, you know, the easiest and make most sense trade, because I agree. I don't think you're going to have to give up too much for Dejounte Murray right now. The Hawks are trying to clean house anyway.
Yeah. And it only seems to happen, I think, if they're going to get into a bidding war with him, then yeah, that's their way. I think they're going to play that card too. I mean, we're not the only ones that potentially are interested in or would entertain him. We've heard numerous teams, Miami, LA, like, you know, there's always a dark horse team somewhere that slides in.
New York.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm not opposed to it, because he's still a young enough kid. He still has decent amount, like a contract you can work with. Like you said, he's better than any guard. You look at the numbers and he's playing with Trae. You know, those are going to go up. Does he fit? Do I have, and this is my reluctance to any question you ask me about any player. I see how they are now. How are they going to be when they come here and they get a nice run with JV and his thing and Sean Marks, and how they handle? That's what makes. I need a player that can come in and withstand that. That's what I need. If he can do that, let's go.
It's funny you bring that up, because, you know, we and by the way, show is sponsored by FireJockVaughn.com. That's FireJockVaughn.com, unofficial sponsor of the pod. You talked about Mikal after that Heat game, voicing, you know, you got to call a timeout there. And there have been moments in pressers where, like, he's been a little bit, you know, upset with some Jacques Vaughn decisions. Cam Thomas obviously gets asked every single game about coming off the bench. You know, I know that we blame the big three in KD and Harden in them a lot for and Kyrie for everything they did, and rightfully so. I'm not taking blame away from the superstars that came to Brooklyn and left. But at some point, you know, if Mikal's getting upset, Mikal Bridges was the happiest go lucky, most friendly, just loves basketball. Like, even on a bad day, he's smiling. If you break him emotionally and mentally, whatever you want to call it, that's not a good track record for Sean Marks and Jacques Vaughn. And Cam Thomas, we already know, has been unhappy. And you got guys like Claxton and Spencer Dinwiddie. Like, at some point, if all your players start to get unhappy, maybe it's not the players at some point.
Could you repeat that like 5 times? And each time you repeat it, get louder and louder. I've said it since the beginning of the season. I was never one of those people that really jumped all against the players or all against the front office. There was enough drama to always go around. There always is. It's never that one-sided, especially in sports. Sometimes it is, but most of the time it's not, when a team is struggling. But now they're all gone. You have no cover Sean Marks and JV. Like, it's like you can't, at some point, it's like if the fan base is aware of the quality and level at which the players you have acquired, and you also have players that we really have no idea where they're going to end up, right? You see a set of skills similar to somebody else, you kind of hope and wish. But at the end of the day, it's like right now what I'm watching to me is not so much the players, even though they are playing bad. It's like I quite honestly think Sean Marks and JV and that whole whatever magical plan that they have and Josiah is what's getting exposed right now. And hopefully they don't get a free pass somehow. They gave themselves free pass after the big free, but there's no more of those. So we're going to see. We are going to see what Sean Marks is made of, because to me, this is redemption. Like, hey, Sean Marks came in, knocked it out of the park, made a lot of us happy, but you haven't been so rosy since then, dude. And you've got to you've got to either reclaim it or admit that your grand vision when you came here needs to change, because that's the other thing. I see a consistent inability to change from whatever random ass vision you had when you got here. It's the same thing since he got here. So sorry for being long-winded, but
no, you're absolutely good. I think a good portion of Nets fans would agree with you. I think that Sean Marks' fan base, as loyal to them as they are, I think it's depleted a little bit. I think his staunch supporters are few and far between at this point.
And you saw Nets Daily post all the coaching experience. Did you see that?
I did. Very interesting. Shout out to Nets Daily. That's former guest of the pod. But yeah, that was interesting.
If you're next return, then you might be onto something.
Yeah. Nets. The only other potential trade option that we've all seen out there. It's not surprising. It's the Donovan Mitchell move. Personally, I don't think it makes sense. You're going to have to give up way too much for him. If you can get him for the right price, great. Pair him and McHale. That might not, it's not going to save this season, but it might save next season. And maybe you can build a team around those two guys to be good with a different coach. What do you think about Donovan Mitchell playing in Brooklyn?
I'm not opposed to it either, but I don't think it makes sense right now. Cavaliers are playing very well, which also means what they're going to ask for him is going to be much more than it would be, say, if they were playing crappy, or, hey, say they get towards the end of the season, they sputter out, they're out in the first round, right? We've already heard rumblings that he kind of wants to not be there, right? Like, he would love to be in New York. That's without a shadow of a doubt, whether it's with the Knicks or us, whatever. I think he makes more sense to revisit in the offseason. If Sean Marks has moved on from all those expiring contracts, and if Sean Marks pulls a miracle and moves on from Ben Simmons in the offseason, right? Maybe he gets a team to take that big expiring contract. It changes, it opens things up. I think it's better to revisit. I'm not opposed to it. I just think it would cost way too much right now of how he's playing, and we just saw him spank us. Silly. 42, 44 points or something in Paris. So it's like, I would like him and I wouldn't mind it, but you got some work to do before you even add him to the mix, quite honestly.
Yeah, he was phenomenal in Paris. He must be a huge fan of croissants and love, I guess. Any other love is big in France, right? People go there, they fall in love. It's a theme over there.
Hey, are you glad that Ben Simmons is making the West Coast trip? Because how bad would that have looked that he flew all the way to Paris and then didn't make the West? I don't know if he's going to be actually play. That's going to be interesting to see. But if he doesn't, that's the only reason he's on the West Coast trip.
Oh, 100%. He wanted to go to Paris. I completely agree. I mean, could you blame him? I probably pulled out. Hey guys, the nerve in my back, it's actually feeling a little bit better. Could you guys send me on a 12-hour, 13-hour flight to Paris? And I'll
that third string masseuse that's in the locker room that got to go? Yeah, same thing. They're like, I'm going.
We can get into Ben Simmons.
We Whatever you want, man.
I wanted to talk about Ben Simmons. I have this segment here. It just says talk about Ben Simmons because I don't even know how to talk about it anymore. Like I don't want to be a negative jerk and say he's never going to play again because obviously, clearly the guy wants to play. And I also like getting on the hype train and trying to be excited for his return. Like you just have to be someone who's unstable mentally to do that, to have that. Yeah, he's going to just return to old Philly Ben Simmons. Like that's not practical either. So how do we talk about this? Are we just wishing the guy a speedy recovery and for him to get back on the court and play the game he loves?
Well, I guess you have to decide which Ben Simmons type fan you are. You have I'm going to talk to you later, Joel, but I'm going to use Joel Brewer in your chat, for example. He is obsessed with Ben Simmons. Ben Simmons can do no wrong. One of my space co-hosts, Brandon, you talked about he's signed, Pete's sidelined. Well, so is Brandon. Brandon's been away from the team indefinitely until Ben returns, and it's like, so you have that fandom, guys that absolutely love him. And hey, I don't hate on that. If he was still Philly Ben, then I would be like, hey, go for it. But I'm also not one of the fans where it's just like I never like. There's other things. When you found out about what happened with his family situation outside of basketball, and you factor that in, and then whatever went on in Philly, right? I try to separate that crap from the back issue, right? Because right now I'm sitting in the chair for the first time since January 2nd because I had I had a back surgery, almost same exact as Ben's. Mine was like a lower lumbar decompression, something science, right? Same thing, nerve impingement, the whole 9 yards. So it's like shooting pains, your L4, L5. It's terrible. Like, so he essentially had the same surgery and has the same symptoms that I have. So I know it's painful and people don't want to hear that, right? But it's true. It's like, and the worst thing you can do is try to play through it. Sometimes you would probably have a couple games that he would, but by and large, it's not the best thing to do. So where I'm at with Ben, I'm not going to hate on Ben. I know that from what I saw this season, since he started and since he hasn't been in, we were a better team with him. Say what you want about him, but we were actually playing better when Ben was here, when Ben was healthy this season. That doesn't mean I don't want him to leave. The reason why I want him to leave is because just like Cashman said about Stanton, injuries are part of his game. That is going, in my opinion, that is going to be Ben Simmons until he retires. Take his latest interview. He even comes out and tells you, dude, I don't know if I can do this again. Like, I thought about leaving, but I'm not going to quit. So I honestly think dude is really going to try and give it a go. But I would not be surprised if he deals with the same stuff he's dealt with the last 2 years for at least the next couple seasons. I think dude's going to call it a career and just go be a Twitch streamer and make his money somewhere else. But I want him to be healthy for various selfish reasons. I want him to be healthy so another team goes, hey, we'll take him. Selfish reasons, but at the same time, I don't wish that on anybody because losing your back at, what is he, 20? That's terrible, dude. You should be losing it at my age, in my 40s, not his age. But anyways, go on.
No, I'm in the same boat in terms of having a different perspective. I personally didn't have back surgery, but my wife, she had it earlier this year. Before she had the surgery, she was in so much pain. It hurt to walk. It hurt to get in the car. It hurt to do everything. And then, recovering from that surgery, she had it, 4 or 5 months ago. She's not 100%. There are days where she's sore, where it hurts, it sucks. And, she's also in her late 20s. She's also not in the NBA. She has a desk job, so she's can get away with it.
LeBron James on a day.
Exactly. So I agree with you. It's a fucked up injury to come back from. It's a messed up surgery. And he's going to have, even when he's better, he's never going to be playing full seasons again. That's just never going to happen. Yeah. So he's going to be one of those guys. Let's say he gets back to, 30, 35 minutes a game. He's going to need rest days. And there are going to be people who hate on him. Those people are uneducated and they should learn about, the symptoms and recovery from back surgery.
Yeah. You pause right there before I lose the thought?
Sure.
You know what the NBA should do, especially with our sitting debacle and how we threw that game and all that? Yeah. And then you look at like player rest. I think if you, as a player, Ben Simmons, perfect example, should be able to prove to the league his medical condition, that should afford teams to have a set amount of rest games for the season. Because you can't tell me having $30 to $50 million worth of players on the bench at any given time is not good for the NBA or the league. So allow teams to do that so they can be a little bit more strategic. Because say he started the season and he played the whole first month, no issues, and then you got like a tough schedule coming up. You know what? I'm sorry, but I'm sitting Ben. Like, I mean, and he has no injury, but this is all related to this. That to me would solve a lot of problems. Right. And I think fans would be a little bit more understanding, especially with and I'm not talking about you. And that's why you set like a certain amount of like a certain amount of games so that a team can't abuse it. But I also think you could put a cutoff date. So you can't just try to manipulate, right? But you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know. That was just the thought of what you said, because he's a person that is, as long as we have him, it's you know, what is that? Soft gloves, hand treat, like everything. We got to have soft gloves with everything we do with him.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, get a doctor's note, right? Have the NBA send an unbiased doctor to, you know, talk to the Nets doctor, and those are his rest days, right? And I think that makes sense. That's a lot better than this load management bullshit. Yeah. I mean, my expectations for him coming back, if he can be like the 7th or 8th guy in our rotation, I'll be happy. You know, that's where I'm at. I just want to see him back on the court. He's not. If he can be our floor general in the starting 5, awesome. That's probably where he'll be. But I even like if you know, Vaughn decides when we move on from Dinwiddie to start Dennis Smith and start with Simmons off the bench, I'm okay with that. Like 10 to 15 minutes a game, just giving a spark.
I mean, the other thought, worst case scenario, you don't, like, Ben stays and we're doing this thing that we're talking about. Worst case scenario is you get another point guard that can handle stuff, is like a legit point guard. And then he becomes your bench guy to stay healthy. I mean, it's like, my thought is either you start him and run him, and I know eventually he's going to get hurt, or you try your best and experiment. And then this is if you have the personnel to do that. Right now they don't. They can try their best, but yeah, maybe you entertain him being on the bench. You know, JV says it all the time, right? How many times have JV said with Cam Thomas, oh, it doesn't really matter who starts or when they starts, because, you know, I usually let him sit 8 minutes and then he's in for the rest of the game. So does it really matter that he starts?
Right. You're absolutely right.
So yeah.
Yeah, it's hope Ben gets well soon. I'm excited to see him back on the court. Probably just playing for fun, because I don't know if this Nets team is even going to make the play-in tournament at this point. Saint, I wanted to know, on this roster, who do you think, if there's anybody that's untouchable, that you're just trade deadline comes and you're not moving this guy? Who are those players on the Brooklyn Nets, if any?
It's funny you say that. Put a tweet out. I think my tweet was, I wonder if there's any one player on the Nets that all can agree should not be traded. Does that player exist? Have they been seen a post? I've seen a post for every single player. Like, literally everybody's been traded on this team. Like, but to be honest with you, when I look at our team and I look at the caliber players we have on it, to me, Cam Thomas is the one with the highest ceiling, in my opinion, at the current moment. I don't think McCall and CJ are going to be much better than they are now. I definitely think they could get, McCall can definitely get a lot more consistent. I think he can improve some, but I don't see that ceiling outside of Cam really rising that much for anybody else on the team too much. So for me, there are no untouchables right now. And I am open to any conversation from any team, depending on who the player is, from now until eternity. And it just, a large portion of that is because it has been shown time and time again that we have had every I can never say that word, caliber of player under the sun the last 4 or 5 seasons. And it's been the same song and dance. And it clearly, you do not know how to operate and handle said players. So for me, I would like players to stick around. I'd like Lonnie Walker to stick around. I'd like Trendon to stick around. I'd like Cam to stick around. I'm kind of iffy on Clax. But there's a handful of players I'd like to see stay. But no, if somebody gives me a better deal and it's for McCall, or I'm sorry, say you came along and you said, here's Luka, and we threw Cam in there. And McCall, dude, I'm throwing everybody in. I don't care. I've become unattached. I love the team, I always will, but this team has no identity. I've fallen in love with certain players on the team, but as a whole, no.
Yeah, I think that's a really, really thorough, smart answer. And I'm trying to think of a case for any one guy, and you can't. You really can't. Both our centers.
Giles, Jalen Wilson, I haven't.
Right, but you're going to move.
But they're not even playing.
So. If anything, Jalen Wilson's value has gotten better in the limited amount of time he's got.
Dude, he looks like an all-star right now. And Clowney, we all misjudged Clowney. We all misjudged him. I'm not saying you, but by and large.
Oh, I misjudged. I misjudged.
Oh, you did?
Listen, I was one of those guys on Twitter. Yeah. After Summer League, he had a bad game, and I trashed him. Listen, Wembanyama had a bad game, and I trashed him. We're all prisoners of the moment. It's hard not to be.
Yeah, exactly.
You saw the Clowney poster. Shout out SportsCenter. Top #1 play, Noah Clowney on the Long Island Nets.
He's going to be a good – I hope my hope for after the deadline when Marks – and I'm going to just good energy. Marks trades away all those expirings and we free up space, and he doesn't really bring too many players that demand a time, but some good ones for us. I would like to see the influx of Jalen Wilson, Watford, Giles. I would like to see if they're, because I'm even convinced potentially, that's the other thing. We have to be prepared that some of these guys, these one-year guys, all these great guys we picked up in this offseason, a couple of them might get thrown into to a trade depending on who and what it is.
Right.
And I'm pretty sure there's not too many untouchables on this team, even in that front office.
Oh, okay.
That's my opinion.
All right. Final question, Saint, before we wrap up. Are there any trades that you would like to see be made by Brooklyn? Like we talked about potentially getting Dejounte or Donovan, but anything that people aren't talking about that you specifically, like I know my co-host has read some articles on Dean Wade from the Cleveland Cavaliers, and Pete wants Dean Wade in Brooklyn. So what are some thoughts?
I don't know. I'm not that. I'm not that nerdy. I'm like you said, I'm not a real crazy stats guy. I'm not a huge trade machine guy. I did have a random weird woke up from a dream the other day, and I was thinking when we traded and we got Donovan Mitchell, that they threw Jared Allen back in there, and we said, we sent them Clax, we sent them whatever. That was one. I was like, I would like that. I would like Jared Allen back on here. But then I woke up this morning and I heard the Warriors are interested in Jared Allen, and I hope to Lord that doesn't happen. Please don't send that man over to the Warriors. But I did read that. I don't know if that's real or not, but yeah, no, dude, there's no real, because I know if I look at the NBA landscape and everybody's saying it, outside of some random shocking trade, a lot of just normal, above mid, what's in between all-star and what's in between all-star star and then what? What do you call it?
Spencer Dinwiddie.
Yeah, Spencer. There you go. I mean, there's really no massive names looking to be really moved right now. You have a better opportunity in the offseason, and especially the next 2 off seasons, to really bring in big names. So for me, I'm glad to see them pass on Dame. I'm glad to see them pass on Levine, because those don't really solve your problems right now. And if anything, Dame just chokes you money wise. In my opinion, long term, anything can happen with his health. So I haven't found that guy right now. I haven't found. There was one point guard when I was trying to dip in my foot into that, and I'm like, yeah, I suck at this. There was a point guard. I can't remember if it's on the Pelicans or God. It was just may have been a team we had just played too, where it was like, he's easy for the taking. There's no way they're going to hold on to this guy. Like, there are players like that out there. Will he make a big enough impact to change everything? No, but that's if I'm looking for trades, I'm looking for young, controllable assets that teams are willing to let go of right now, coupled with picks. I'm not looking for huge choking contracts.
Right. Jordan Hawkins was the backup point guard for the Pelicans.
Maybe that. What's his name?
He's been great. Jordan Hawkins. He's been phenomenal the last few games. He's been putting up points. He's a really good shooter.
Let me check. It might have been him.
The Pelicans are contenders, so if they wanted a DFS or a Royce, like, he would be the perfect get for us. Is that the guy?
Well, okay, this is the guy that you were talking about. Now, I have somebody that I talk with in a chat, and she's like huge into the Pels, and I should probably ask her about this individual, because I don't know how this team views Jordan. I don't know too much about him, right? I'm just like looking like.
I mean, I'm just looking from a macro level. If they want to get more, because you have your core, you have CJ, you have Zion, you have Brandon Ingram, you have Herb Jones. Okay, give me DFS, give me Royce off the bench. Like, those are vets that can come in and hit shots and defend. Not that Hawkins is bad. Obviously, he's a player, but I don't know. Trade youth for more depth. Could be a trade.
That's where my head is at, because there's no names that are really like going, oh my God, like. And I mean, you can tell too, because fans aren't really fighting about anybody too much. Right. You know what I mean? Like,
no, I know exactly what you mean.
The last big fight was Dame. So
yeah, and I was kind of like on the fence there. Like,
I was.
I know the contract would have strangleholded us, but that freaking shot he hit like the other day, the buzzer beater against
Dame time in Brooklyn still would have been nice. Yeah. It would.
All right, Saint, it has been a blast. I do want to point out, I know we've been silent on this all show. Both of us wearing sunglasses indoors is a boss ass move. Like, I just want to put, like, one person with sunglasses on a pod is all right, but two people, like, just don't fuck with us. Like, that's it, right?
Yeah. This is my Mafia. This is my all black Adidas Mafia outfit. The glasses had to match. Like I said, beginning, I was in the witness protection program for embarrassment basketball teams. So, but the fact that I was thinking, oh, this is going to bomb. This is going to look stupid. And then when I came on and you were sitting there, I'm like, fuck it. We're doing it.
Come on. The men in black are diehard Nets fans. That's what it is.
And I don't know, we could be hungover from depression from the team. I mean, I don't know. There's many. I mean, I could be hiding. I don't know. I mean, I could have lots of wrinkles, bags. I could have been up late, just banging my head against the wall, thinking, when am I going to stay on Fireside?
Yeah, I don't want your followers to see the pain in these eyes. That's it.
I don't like the term followers. I like to say I have a group of net fans that I talk basketball with, and if they've heard me and seen my face, you're good, bro. I've got endless YouTube videos that you could probably just destroy, make fun of with pictures. Like, yeah, you're good. You're good, bro.
Plus, I got the highlights from last game in this lens right here. I've just been rewatching it the whole podcast. For those who are listening on audio, I gotta do it, right?
Wait, are those the glasses that you can, or are you just making shit up?
No, I'm just making shit up, but that would be pretty sick, right? If he should have called the timeout right there. That's where he should have called the timeout.
That's why I said that, because Ray-Ban there's a couple glasses that are similar to that, like where you can watch, record, take a picture. Like, so I was like, shit,
I do have the speaker ones. I do have sunglasses that have a speaker in it. So those are kind of cool. All right. This podcast was unofficially brought to you by Sunglasses. And Saint, thank you very much for joining the show. Where can people, I don't want to use the word follow find you on Twitter to engage in discussions about Nets basketball with you?
Saint Nets 1. That's where I'm at. I'm always I'm filling in for Brandon right now on Spaces with Jay from BK. Nets Kingdom had a little slow start this year. We're all growing. Some people are growing up and getting big boy things are happening, and so we're all kind of busy. But we're there. We're going to be doing more of a recorded, kind of pre-recorded thing after the game, just for matching time for everybody. So that's going to be back out there. There was something I had to say and completely slipped my mind, but that's all right. Listen, I'm real easy to find. I'm either on YouTube on Nets Kingdom or I'm on Twitter or in Spaces. Pretty simple. Spen, I do again appreciate you bringing me on here. Been waiting to talk with you, and yeah, you didn't disappoint.
Well, listen, you're welcome back on the podcast. So we'll absolutely make you a recurring guest. Shout out to Nets Kingdom. Shout out to Jay from BK, former guest of the pod. And shout out to the Brooklyn Nets. Hopefully, they give us something to root for in this second half of the season. Hopefully, a few trades will be made by Shawn Marks. But until then, thanks to everyone for listening to another edition of Fireside Nets. Catch you on the Fireside.
Brooklyn.